Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about your migration journey from on-premises or from MCP to our cloud, to our managed cloud offering. Today, I'm joined by a lot of subject matter experts who are going to talk to you about this migration journey and how valuable it is and how easy it is for you to migrate. All right. With the virtual wave in full swing, you might have found yourself right now wearing multiple hats. So if you're a system administrator, for instance, you might have found yourself having to manage your applications and being a platform administrator or being a network or doing some network engineering or security, or even in some cases, you're doing database administration and database architecture. So everybody's wearing multiple hats. And even for CIOs, like their position went from managing the infrastructure and managing the applications into being fully involved in the business strategy and the digital transformation. As our Microstrategy CIO put it perfectly in her interview with AWS and Ventana, the role of the CIO has been transformed from managing infrastructure and applications to being at the heart of the business strategy and the digital transformation. I think we can all agree on that. The good news is, with the Microstrategy Cloud offering, we can help you shift back towards your organization's digital transformation. The Microstrategy Cloud solution, we can take the responsibility for optimizing your environment, deploying your environment, optimizing it, managing your users, scaling up, scaling down, and all the infrastructure work that you do on-prem. Now, we're going to talk to you a little bit more about that, and Mike is going to talk about the value of moving to the cloud.
Yeah, thanks, Mo. Thanks for that introduction, and really excited to go through and talk with everybody today. Yeah, and like Mo said, and we'll go into in a little bit more detail throughout this session, and I think we'll focus on quite a bit throughout this World Week, is that your people spend so much time in your processes to make the technology that you own and operate work for you. And with the further shift to IT as the business partner, your time is best spent on the solutions needed by the business. Which is why when you adopt the Microstrategy Cloud service, for an example, our solution is to take care of that infrastructure and all of that environment management for you. As Mo said, the overarching mission and the way that we design Microstrategy Cloud's roadmap at its heart is extremely simple. We're just trying to magnify and amplify the journey that you have towards modern analytics by allowing our customers to focus on developing their analytics applications instead of having to manage the underlying infrastructure behind it. Our Microstrategy Cloud customers essentially remove the need for these tricky IT tasks as it relates to their Microstrategy applications. The reduced overhead from not needing to perform these IT and administrative tasks associated with building and maintaining the underlying infrastructure of a Microstrategy deployment allows you to focus on developing the powerful new features that we have in Microstrategy 2021 and beyond, such as hyperintelligence, dossier, geospatial, and all the other great things that you'll hear about throughout our world sessions. And with more time to focus on deploying new features, you'll be able to contribute to your business's overall strategy in a much more efficient way. On top of saving you and your organization time, migrating to the cloud is a cost-effective solution for you and your organization, as you just heard about in our last keynote session. And to give a little bit more context to that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mark Starbuck, who's our Senior Cloud Systems Director, who manages hundreds, if not thousands, of different cloud environments over the course of his career.
Thanks, Mike. And like you said, migrating to the cloud is a cost-effective solution to your organization. As we mentioned in our last session, you can see cost savings of moving to the cloud if you compare your on-premises cost to the cost of hosting a MicroStrategy environment in the cloud. On top of that, migrating to the cloud ensures easy upgrades and updates. So that means you'll always be on the latest MicroStrategy software. You won't have to worry about planning major upgrades or worrying about user downtime. MicroStrategy will handle that process for you. That means new functionalities and fixes are available to you in the cloud. Many of our customers take full advantage of the ease of upgrading in the cloud. One of our cloud customers, who is one of the largest alcohol retailers and distributors in North America, used their cloud migration as a jumping point to modernize their current BI solution. In the span of just 1 year, Microstrategy Cloud performed 2 successful upgrades, bringing them from version 10.4 to 2019 and again to 2020, gaining a wealth of new functionalities with little to no downtime for their users. You'll have the chance to hear more about MicroStrategy upgrades in the next session, and I recommend you stay put in this channel if you want to learn more. With such simple upgrades and migrations within the cloud solution, your organization will be among the first customers to receive the latest tools and cool features that take advantage of powerful new capabilities. And all you have to do is ask. And with that, I'm going to bring you back to Mo, who's going to talk about why you should choose MicroStrategy to start your journey to the cloud.
Thanks, Mark. Migrating to the cloud has so many benefits, and it can be very tempting to try to migrate yourself. And you sure can. But let me talk to you about why your migration to the cloud with MicroStrategy, the success is guaranteed. Right? MicroStrategy was an early pioneer of cloud analytics. We began hosting cloud environments from back in 2011. As a matter of fact, this year we're celebrating 10 years of deep committed investment in our cloud services with our fully mature cloud solution we offer to our customers. As you heard from the keynote, investment in our cloud solution for enterprise analytics has been an important part of our strategy for the past 10 years. Starting from 2011, as I just mentioned, we started our first managed cloud solution offering. By 2013, we were one of the early AWS adopters for hosted enterprise analytics. With security in our hearts and mind always, we've gotten a lot of certifications and a lot of compliances, including SOC 2, Type 2, PCI, DSS, HIPAA, and we continue to invest in our security and our certifications over the year over year. Now, when it comes to automation and when it comes to ease of use, we've kept building more and more tooling. By 2015, we had our central administration via Cloud Console. By 2016, we had the high availability with 24/7 security operations. And by 2017, we introduced one-click and self-service synchronization. And by 2019, we expanded our offer to Microsoft Azure, providing feature parity with AWS. And now, with 2021, we're excited to be expanding our offering to include automated on-prem migration experience and containerized deployment. Throughout these years, MicroStrategy team has migrated hundreds of customers to our MicroStrategy Cloud offering and our MicroStrategy managed platform. We've built expertise, subject matter expertise in migrating customers to the cloud, but also to manage the customer environment, providing optimizing security, scalability, performance, and availability. With MicroStrategy Cloud offering, we eliminate the ambiguity of responsibility. We are your one-stop shop for availability, maintenance, and security. With that, I'm going to hand it back to Mike to talk more about that experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Mo. And like Mo said, again, we've evolved and iterated a lot over the past 10 years that we've had this MicroStrategy Cloud offering available. And really, when it comes down to it, we know, and hopefully you know as well, that there's never going to be a 100% perfect solution. But the name of the game is to iterate often and to get better every single day with experience. And like Mo talked about, our team has been doing this for over 10 years, and we've migrated and managed hundreds of customers. In addition to those hundreds of customers, we use our own MicroStrategy Cloud platform for internal workloads, such as testing and benchmarking, and even to provide access to our education platform directly to our customers. In the keynote session earlier, Phong talked a little bit about our free education initiative that we launched earlier this year. And not only was that a huge success from a MicroStrategy education point of view, to be able to give education resources to the latest and greatest features within MicroStrategy, but it was also demonstrating the cloud platform improvements that we've made over the past 10 years, 5 years, to enhance the performance and stability of our console. And as we had the most concurrent MCP deployments at one time, we had over 10,000 environments at one time. And not only does that demonstrate our ability to host thousands of concurrent environments, but the surge of demand helped us to surpass our internal milestone of managing over 70,000 environments over the past 5 years. These numbers really showcase that MicroStrategy has the expertise, the infrastructure, and the operational automation worth trusting for cloud migrations. So with that being said, and showing the value, what we can provide with our cloud migrations, I'll pass it back over to Mo to go in exact details of what we can do for you.
Thanks, Mike. So now that we know why organizations should move to MicroStrategy Cloud offering, let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of it and talk about what the migration process actually is. Now, before we start, let me assure you that MicroStrategy experts will be with you every step of the way. As a matter of fact, the migration process requires very little administration from your part, and it's mainly focusing on capturing the requirements from you. It's an easy 4-step process, or 4 phases, basically. The first phase is the prerequisites phase. This is the phase where we actually get some information from you about your environment, information about your platform, about your network, about security, that will help us stand up your environment in the cloud. Now, with the next 2 phases is when we actually start building your environment and migrating your metadata. This phase usually, or those 2 phases usually take between 2 and 3 weeks. Now, with phase 2, we start creating your cloud account and you build your environment. And then phase 3 is when we actually migrate your on-prem data and metadata into the cloud. And we have tooling to automate this process, migrating your metadata, your cache and cube files, your images, and even your customizations, and take it all and migrate it to the cloud in one shot. And as part of that, if you're not on the latest MicroStrategy version, we actually upgrade you to the latest version so that when you move to the cloud, you're on the latest version with all the latest features that MicroStrategy offers. Now, after that, we move to phase 4, where we actually hand over the cloud environment for you to start validation. And we even help you with that validation before we do the production cutover. Now I'm going to hand it over to our cloud engineer, Louise, who's going to talk a little bit about this process in more details.
Thanks, Mo. So while we'll try to minimize the amount of effort on your end, we do want to make sure that we get things right. And part of that is making sure that we have the right people together at the beginning of the information gathering stage. So let's go over the teams on both the MicroStrategy end and your end that will work together for that first phase of the migration process. On the MicroStrategy end, you'll be working with primarily 3 different individuals. The account executive, who will help you scope the size of your environment and other scoping needs. You'll also work with the migration lead, which will help lead the entire project and will be the individuals making sure that your environment is built correctly. And you'll also be working with your operational lead, which will be the individual who will be assigned to your account and will be your point of contact as soon as you officially migrate to your new cloud environment. On your end, we typically recommend that you involve 4 different personas in our migration process. The titles of these individuals will vary within your organization, but I think you'll get the idea of what we're talking about. The first individual that we recommend that you involve in our migration process is naturally the MicroStrategy administrator of your organization. This is a person that has all of the technical knowledge about your current deployment and how everything is set up in your environments. Another 2 individuals that we recommend including in the migration process are your network administrator and your database administrator. Along with these 2 individuals, we'll be able to make sure that the databases and access to data in the cloud is configured correctly, and that everything from a network security perspective and from an accessibility perspective works well for your end users. The last group of individuals that we'll be talking to are business stakeholders, and we'll use their input in our validation step. They'll help us ensure that the migration has been successful and that everything is configured exactly the way that it was in the old environment. To talk a little bit more about the questionnaires that we'll send to the individuals I just mentioned, I'll pass it off back to Mark.
As Luis said, the first step in beginning your MicroStrategy cloud journey is to describe your environment and MicroStrategy application to us. Our cloud experts will meet with the folks on your end and create a kickoff plan with detailed steps and timelines. We have structured questionnaires to quickly gather critical information on your MicroStrategy requirements, networking configuration, and cloud deployment options. We'll review all information for completeness and guide you on every step. We will immediately begin the process of creating your cloud, starting with your own dedicated infrastructure to build your MicroStrategy application in our secure, optimized architecture. Specifically, we're going to deploy a virtual private cloud with the CIDR ranges and environment IPs ready to establish a virtual private network with your on-premises data warehouse. This process is fully automated, takes a matter of minutes, and directly leads to the next stage, deploying your pre-production environment. Next, Mike is going to take you through the next 2 stages.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, and as Mark mentioned, at this point, we've already gathered all of the necessary information and gotten any clarifications from you and your team to begin building a new cloud environment with the latest and greatest version of MicroStrategy. We'll use the environment requirements and the authentication requirements that you've given us to automatically deploy a fully configured MicroStrategy environment into the predefined virtual private cloud created in the previous step, like Mark was just talking about. Again, we've used predefined requirements to build an environment over 70,000 times throughout the course of 5 years, and have automated the end-to-end process for the environment creation down to less than 45 minutes. Once connectivity has been established, MicroStrategy will perform initial environment testing to ensure that everything was deployed correctly. We'll do things such as validating various trust tokens, checking connectivity to workstation, confirming developer project source connectivity, and way more. Once everything looks good on our end and on your end, MicroStrategy will proceed to the next step. In the third step of our process, MicroStrategy will work with you to take a snapshot of your current MicroStrategy solution and migrate it to your new cloud environment. This will be done through what we call MicroStrategy Backup and Restore, or MSTR Back for short. The design of MicroStrategy Backup and Restore allows for an automated 20 to 30 minute client run to capture all of the critical components of your MicroStrategy application, including the metadata, cubes, caches, images, and plugins into a single backup file. Then with the power of the MicroStrategy Cloud Platform, this backup file can then be restored automatically within roughly an hour, depending on the size of your environment, into your new MicroStrategy Cloud environment. So essentially within a few hours, any system administrator can back up and migrate and upgrade at the same time their environments into a MicroStrategy Cloud environment for a POC. And this is really the goal that we're hoping to achieve with MSTR Back, and hope that you can see the value in. And so with that, I'll go into a quick demo of exactly what this may look like if you were to migrate into our cloud. Awesome. So yeah, now we see within the MicroStrategy Cloud console, we have an environment already, and I've got this metadata object. It might not necessarily be a dossier, but it's something that you want to transfer to your new upgraded and migrated environment. So the first thing I'll do is I'll log into my original environment, and I'm going to run the MicroStrategy Backup and Restore client. So again, this is a Linux client currently. We're hoping to extend it later in the year to Windows as well, where I'll simply go to the file path and I'll run the MSTR Back client within the -C mode. The first thing I'll do then is put in some of my credentials for my project metadata, as well as for my database. And obviously I've obscured those credentials so that you cannot see those. Once I get this information, it's going to again run the client backup so that it captures the cubes, caches, images, plugins, all the things that make your MicroStrategy environment tick. And then I'll upload that file into a cloud storage device, as you see here. So whoops, made a little mistake there in the S3 bucket name, but then I'll go into this actual S3 bucket. I'll provide the credentials there as well. And once this file is completed, it will upload automatically into that S3 bucket. So I've sped up the process a little bit here, and you'll see, but again, this takes roughly between 20 and 30 minutes. I'll then capture this file name, and I'll go into the MicroStrategy Cloud Platform, where I can immediately restore and automatically restore this environment into a MicroStrategy Cloud environment. So I'll put in the credentials there. I'll create the environment. Again, within 45 minutes to an hour, we expect this environment to be completed. And I can go into the upgraded and migrated environment here and see that I still have that same testing dossier. So now that we've seen the powerful capabilities that MicroStrategy Backup and Restore has to offer, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Luis to go over some customer examples to see exactly how they've been able to achieve this.
Thanks, Mike. So now that we've seen how MSTR Back works in action, let's look quickly at a few of the enhancements that has been made by the team for MSTR Back in 2021. So we now support MSTR Back for Azure as well as AWS. So if you want to switch between cloud provider environments, you actually can. And this was something that was requested by a lot of our customers. Actually, one of our customers, who is a manufacturer of automobile safety components, took advantage of this new feature in 2020 and migrated their environment from AWS to Azure. So with MicroStrategy support, they were able to migrate very successfully, and they leveraged the new MSTR Back for Azure. With that in mind, there are additionally other components and enhancements that are coming to MSTR Back. So this product is really just going to keep getting better and better with time. So now that we've talked about MSTR Back, I'm going to pass it off to Mark to talk about the last part of our migration and the validation stage.
Thanks, Luis. That's a great example of the flexibility and power of MSTR Back in the cloud architecture. The fourth and final step of our migration process is to validate your new cloud environment. We have taken care that every step of the migration is configured to ensure that your environment is ready for the cloud. Our tools and techniques are streamlined, hardened, and repeatable. Before releasing the cloud platform to you, the cloud team takes special care to deliver quality. We'll perform extensive checks to ensure that your cloud environment runs perfectly and securely. For example, Environment reachability, connectivity, networking, licensing, configuration, and security are each rigorously checked, and the automation and manual verifications will ensure that all your data sources are correctly connected so that your projects are configured to accept immediate delivery of the cloud platform. But your experience does not end just with the cloud infrastructure. We'll collaborate with your team to determine the scope of MicroStrategy project testing, including Integrity Manager, capacity, and regression testing, either performed by MicroStrategy or in collaboration with the team. Next, I'm glad to introduce our good friend Toby, who has successfully migrated dozens of customers to the cloud, who will share the end-to-end approach to MicroStrategy.
Thanks, Mark. So let's talk more about the most important benefit of the end-to-end MicroStrategy approach. And that's really leveraging our highly skilled, experienced, and certified resources. Look, we know every industry, client, and environment is unique. But regardless of the size of the environment or complexity, our cloud migration team always works with your BI teams to well define that work. Even with the very mature environments, we know it's important to understand the underlying building blocks to ensure that fast and successful migration. That gives you day one, top-tier performance, and provides that important visibility in the long-term growth of the environment. And that translates into a powerful value-based roadmap for your entire organization. Professional services resources will lead you through a proven approach to provide detailed scope across 4 key areas. Each area provides an output into how to best use the power and capabilities of your MicroStrategy and keep your users excited and on the leading edge of their seats. So first, we identify and size data sources. We want to understand the number of sources by source type, frequency, and volume. Since this is often a combination of traditional BI sources and operational data, it's very important to scope across both known and probable growth. So really, it's the best estimate of how many additional sources and of what type, and including the number of data connections required end to end. Next, the number of environments to migrate is critical. While everyone always plans to use best practices for environment consistency, replication, and horsepower, sometimes a complex reality drives different decisions and somewhat unique builds. So defining current to goal state for dev, test, and production environments is a key level to understand setup, testing, and of course, optimum performance. The number of metadata moves is also a key lever. Once the environment approach is understood, the scope of both metadata size and method can be defined. We'll move metadata by either environment or project by project. If by project, the number of complexity becomes a very important input for accelerated migration. And then finally, based on and mapped to all of the previous inputs, we define the level of specific approach for user testing. This becomes the most important collaboration with your BI team. As we've already discussed many times earlier, we work with you to define user experience testing as fully automated, a mix of automation and manual human testing, or fully manual with no automation. Regardless, this area needs to be detailed and clear as input to the last area of testing, which of course is end-to-end performance. The final piece, performance testing and tuning to best leverage that great new environment for a faster, better user experience and that strong ROI. So as we've discussed, our migration process is robust and has been proven to work for hundreds of customers. You've already heard about how so many of our clients leverage this process successfully, but let me share just a few other examples really across the span of size and maturity. So first up, a large mobile marketing company. So we moved them from self-managed MicroStrategy Cloud Platform, MCP, so on-prem, to a managed cloud platform end-to-end with us. Not only did that reduce dependency on in-house expertise, but it greatly increased efficiencies. We also accelerated schema builds and rapid deployment of new dossier. Overall, really, it was an enablement of overall business transformation. fast and quite frankly, relatively easy. Next up, a larger company, large American women's clothing retail chain, migrated from 9.4 on-prem to 2020 in MCE. So not only 3 major version jumps across one upgrade, but also obviously onto MCE. Immediate 40% performance improvements and labor savings of $120,000 per year. And that was just in reduced admin costs. Further, professional services resolved any issues during the triple version migration all along the way. So last up, an American building materials supply company, end-to-end data warehouse to MCE, large many-to-many schema, over 50 cubes, hundreds of dossiers with self-service complexity. Previously built and maintained by a third-party cloud provider, but we really needed accelerated development, so we migrated from version 10.x to 2020 to a fully maintained MicroStrategy data warehouse all the way through to MCE environment. Combine that with a development team via professional services. Immediate 3x development acceleration, 150% reduction in client labor, and 400% increased user onboarding capability on a quarter-over-quarter basis. So clearly, planning and detailed scope is crucial. And as we've discussed, we've done hundreds of these migrations, but across all sizes and complexity. And each client is now well positioned to accelerate the end game, which is ongoing end user value. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Luis to tell you how to get started.
Thanks, Toby. So if you're ready to migrate to the MicroStrategy Cloud offering, the first step would be to contact your account executive. They'll help you figure out how much you can save with our ROI calculator, and they'll go over the logistics of your migration, including the prerequisites, the checklists, and the questionnaires that we mentioned earlier in the presentation. Lastly, they'll help you estimate how quickly you can expect this new cloud environment to be up and running. So if you want to learn more about the MicroStrategy Cloud offering, we also recommend that you stick around for our next 2 sessions. And otherwise, let's get to the Q&A.